I know it's hard, I know it's complicated, but I promised you I've been waiting here forever. I had a much to say, but you're not here with me, no. We're invincible, like fire in the snow. Trust me when I say you are my beautiful world, and I'm feeling it all, we should make an effort. It's true you're so far away, and it's true you don't feel the same. But if you take my hand, we can try and go back, starting from scratch. I won't let you go, no I can't let you go, 'cause you're my gravity, and I will never leave. I won't let you go, no baby I will not, because I still believe. You're my gravity. You will never be what I expected. Different frequencies, that's why we ain't connected. You know I will make it through, I got nothing to lose but you. It's true you're so far away, and it's true I can feel the same. It's another day, you know you want me to stay, but I go my way. I won't let you go, no I can't let you go, 'cause you're my gravity, and I will never leave. I won't let you go, no baby I will not, because I still believe. You're my gravity. You're my gravity. You're calling out my name, but the echo numbs your pain. Sorry, but more than just a shadow, I'm more than just a man. You don't care how I feel, you don't know how I feel. No, you don't know how. I wash away the sorrow till my heart can beat again. You're my gravity. No, you're my gravity. I will let you go, the only thing that I know. You were my gravity, but now I have to leave. I will let you go. Why do you feel that I want? What do you think that I want? I know how to breathe into my gravity, into my gravity, into my gravity, into my gravity, into my gravity. I know it's hard, I know it's complicated, but I promised you I've been waiting here forever. I had a much to say, but you're not here with me, no. We're invincible, like fire in the snow. Trust me when I say you are my beautiful world, and I'm feeling it all, we should make an effort. It's true you're so far away, and it's true you don't feel the same. But if you take my hand, we can try and go back, starting from scratch. I won't let you go, no I can't let you go, 'cause you're my gravity, and I will never leave. I won't let you go, no baby I will not.
Warning: the Duracell Cup Series data file you have attempted to access is out of date. Uploading current file now.
It's a brand new car from stem to stern, and it's never been raced at these speeds.
The next gen car is opportunity.
Everything is different with the exception of like the seat, the steering wheel, and your helmet.
Unknown creates excitement.
Talking about my generation.
Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome here as we prepare for the 26th race of the 7th season of the NNSCRA Duracell Next Gen Cup Series here from Auto Club Speedway. This is the regular season finale. At the conclusion of today's 63-lap race, we will know the 16 drivers that will be battling in this season's playoffs. 10 drivers will make it in via top 10 in points. 6 drivers will get in through the wild card positions. We know a few drivers are already locked in regardless of what happens here today, but we are yet to know the remainder of the field that will take part in this season's playoffs. Let's show you that playoff grid coming into today because it may look entirely different when we get to the conclusion of today's event. Rob Evans, Casey Hoyt, Austin LaPlante, and James Qualls. These are the 4 drivers that will be in the conversation today for the regular season championship. Regular season championship pays out 15 playoff points and almost secures you the number 1 seed heading into the first round of the playoffs. 17 points separating all 4 of those drivers. Casey Hoyt is -6, Austin LaPlante -8, James Qualls -7. Hoyt and Qualls, with their 3 victories apiece, could certainly have a tidy sum of playoff points once the postseason begins if they're able to close out this regular season championship. For Austin LaPlante and Rob Evans, they've gotten in through consistency, and they are looking to have the bonus points to kind of compensate for the bonus points they won't have since neither of them have yet been to victory lane. Those drivers that I just mentioned as well, they know that not only are they battling for the regular season championship, but they are locked into the playoffs. As long as you came into this race with 47 or more points between you and the cut line, you were guaranteed you were going to be battling for the championship. To that end, Jesse Turner and Destin Bolin, who are right now 5th and 6th in overall points, they are also locked into the postseason. Mathematically, they cannot fall out of the top 10 in points. So congratulations to those 6. Question marks, though, for drivers like Dylan Poteet, Keith Batson, Caleb Fogler, and Will Goss. Now, we'll get to Will Goss in a moment. For Dylan Poteet, he comes into this race 29 points ahead of the 10th in the standings cut line, so he needs to finish in 13th or better here today to remain there. Keith Batson, he is a total of 21 points ahead of the cut line, so he has to finish 21st or better to remain in the top 10, and Caleb Fogler is only a mere 7 points ahead of the cut line, so he's going to have to finish up inside of the top 10 to advance into the playoffs via top 10 in points. Now, for Dylan Poteet and Caleb Fogler, you see they all both actually have a win as well. So if they drop out of the top 10, they'd fall into a wild card position and there's a big should, be advancing into the playoffs. Will Goss, he is kind of just trying to decide here today how he wants to advance into the playoffs. He's locked in. Will Goss is absolutely locked in. He will either get in via top 10, or if he drops out of the top 10, he's got 2 victories, and he is the highest running of all of the multi-time winners that were not yet locked in via points like Casey Hoyt and James Qualls. he is way ahead of Jessica Shelton, Matthew Rodriguez, and Connor Breton. So there is no way that he will be in any worse than the second seed of the wildcard drivers if he falls out of the top 10 in points. So Will Goss will battle for the championship, this much we know. Dylan Young and Ryan Butcher, you see them currently situated in the 4th and 5th seed. I'm sorry, correction, of the 3rd and 4th seed, I should say. They are one-time winners that are 11th and 12th in overall points. If they can at least have a decent outing here today, it's pretty likely that they're going to be in at least the final 3 wildcard positions in 2 of those 3 spots. I think they're going to be battling for the championship here this season. The big question marks surround the other drivers that are ahead of them and below them in these wildcard positions. Let's start first with Jessica Shelton and Matthew Rodriguez. Shelton comes into this race 24th in overall points. She is a total right now of 19 points ahead of the 30th in the standings cut line. That's not a lot of security. So for Jessica Shelton, she's got to pretty much finish this race up inside of at least the top 20, if not the top 15, to secure those 2 wins into a wild card position. For Matthew Rodriguez, the job's going to be even tougher. Granted, he's in a ride here this week that he's having to get used to for the first time behind the wheel of a Northeast Motorsports Chevrolet, but it at least locked him into the field via a charter. Last week, a decent outing at Bristol Dirt put him to 28th in overall points, but he is only 5 points ahead of the cut line. Matthew Rodriguez needs a good points day here today. At least a top 10, maybe a top 5 to secure himself a spot in the playoffs after winning 2 of the opening season crown jewel races, Daytona 500, and then later on at Indianapolis. Now let's talk quickly here about Zach Rogers and Levi McIntyre, who right now are situated in the 15th and 16th seed. What they need to have happen here today is they need to obviously have a good run, get some good points, but also they might want to look at this race as a must-win situation because there are a lot of drivers, and I'll be listing off the names in just a minute, that could easily win their way into the playoffs this afternoon. If they are ahead of Zach Rogers and Levi McIntyre in the points, then those two, who are separated by only 2 points, by the way, they would end up dropping down into the 16th and then potentially 17th seed, which there is none. 17th seed means you're eliminated. So they'll be battling each other here today, but also be hoping that we have a repeat winner would be the best thing, case scenario for them. They also have to maintain a gap between themselves and Zachary Fitzwater, who right now would be the first driver out that has a victory inside of the top 30 in points. Fitzwater is 26th in overall points. He has a total of 27 points behind Levi McIntyre and 29 points behind his teammate Zach Rogers. With that many points to have to make up, Zachary Fitzwater will probably have to approach this race today as must win as well, get a second victory, and leapfrog all of the one-time winners that are inside the top 30 in the standings. And after all this is being said, another driver that we haven't even talked about that could definitely muddy the waters in terms of the playoff standings is our 3-time winner Connor Breton. Last week at Bristol Dirt, he dropped out of the top 30 in the points. He's 32nd in overall standings and only 5 points below the cut line. If Connor Breton makes his way back into the top 30, that shifts the cutoff line, and that means that either Zach Rogers or Levi McIntyre, provided we don't have another first-time winner here today, one of them is going to be below the 16th seed. So a lot of moving pieces can take place if Breton reemerges back inside of the top 30. Now, if Breton moves back in the top 30 and Rodriguez falls out of the top 30, that kind of cancels each other out, and then Rogers and McIntyre are back in the same scenario that they are coming into this race. Some other drivers, though, that could definitely make their way into the playoffs if they were to win here today. Well, let's actually first cover drivers that can point their way into the playoffs. Drivers that still have enough mathematical chance to work their way into the top 10 in the point standings. Those drivers would include drivers such as Reese Banks, Mitchell Collins, Chris Dollerton, Carson Gum, Reggie Fogelman, and Michael Norman. Now, if any of those drivers I mentioned, if they win here today, they're automatically locked in. They're going to get a high-seeded wildcard spot. But if any of them get a good points day and not necessarily a checkered flag, they could make their way into the playoffs via points. Now, if we look at drivers that would automatically lock themselves in via wins, but they are in a must-win situation, those drivers would include Jose Mills, Cody Lamas, Charles Sanford, Anthony McCrory. Those drivers would automatically win their way into the playoffs since they are within striking distance of both Zach Rogers and Levi McIntyre. They also could bypass drivers such as Ryan Butcher and Dylan Young, depending on the circumstances. And then other drivers that could win their way into the playoffs, but they're going to need a lot of help to be able to have that be the case, would include the following: Quentin Moore, RJ Bishop, Matt Haas, Matt McIntyre, Ryan Brommer, Joshua Osborne, Cole Deaver. Those are the drivers that have the long shot of winning their way into the playoffs, but they'd need a lot of help. They would need drivers like Zachary Fitzwater and Matthew Rodriguez and Connor Breeden to be outside the top 30 in points. Maybe even Jessica Shelton to drop out of the top 30 in points to be able to secure a wild card spot. So a lot of moving pieces would have to take place for them to be able to win their way in, and it's not all that easy to do that at a track like Auto Club. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. We'll try and keep you guys aware of what the scenarios are during the course of this race, but I'm going to put out the disclaimer right here and now. Many times in the past, I have tried to do the mathematics in my head. The calculations have not always worked out. I've announced post-race that this driver's made it in and this driver is out, and been incorrect in my calculations. So therefore, disclaimer is going to be, stay tuned till the end of the race. We'll show you the point standings after they are all officially calculated, and then we will give you a video at the end showing who the 16 drivers are that are battling for the championship here this season. But I'm ready to get going. How about you guys? Let's go down trackside and get those most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines!
Just like when we talk about the transporter. At the end of pit road, the last pit box is a timing line. So the last white line on pit exit is the line. Big thumbs up, my friend. Have a good time.
Right side of your screen, you see the starting lineup for today's race. The defending champion, Charles Sanford, not yet locked into the playoffs. He could do so with a victory here today at his home track, as he'll share the front row with a fellow Chevrolet Camaro in Benjamin Miles. Benjamin Miles mathematically cannot make the playoffs even if he were to win here today, so he's just looking to get a checkered flag before season's end, still looking for his first top 5 on the season. If you didn't tune into our Duracell Ultra Light Series race yesterday, expect a wild one here this afternoon. We saw them 4 wide and on a couple of occasions 5 wide in the lights race, and these drivers here today, many of them knowing that it is a win that hinges their playoff hopes. We will see them make some aggressive moves during the course of this one, and it may come down to a race of survival if we have some mistakes in today's event. 63 laps await these drivers here. Some new faces and new places, as Reggie Fogelman will be behind the wheel of the number 80 out of Haas Racing. He'll roll up the grid from the 8th position. Matthew Rodriguez, as we mentioned, behind the wheel of the 24 for Northeast Motorsports. And how about the multi-time winner Trey Wright making his first start in the season for Blue Oval Automotive? But here we go. Who's advancing into the playoffs to battle for the championship? Green flag is in the air here at Auto Club Speedway. And we're already 3 looking 4 going into turn 1. Laura Chung making a move to the inside for the race lead, trying to deny Charles Sanford that valuable bonus point for leading the first lap. Michael Norman also with a nice run down the back straightaway, looks to make it 3 wide coming out of turn 4. Michael Norman, multiple-time winner last year, as we got a driver headed for pit road. I believe that was the 31 of Dylan Poteet. And Michael Norman is going to lead the first lap of the day. Michael had 3 wins last year, 2 of them taking place during the playoffs. At this point in time, though, he's tried to either point or win his way into the postseason, as indeed the 31 of Dylan Poteet with an unscheduled pit stop. Looks like they're changing the right side tires on his Chevrolet. Remember, Pote came into this race only a total of 31 points ahead of the 10th in the standings cut line, trying to point his way in. Now, he does have a victory at Darlington to fall back on, which would, I think, garner him a wild card spot, but that makes things even more difficult for drivers like Zach Rogers and Levi McIntyre, who are trying to also clinch a wild card position. Trey Wright led that lap in the 82 car. Now he gets shuffled out by Austin LaPlante. Matt McIntyre right there as well. Remember, LaPlante, Qualls, Hoyt, and Evans all battling for the regular season championship here. It was one season ago that Nick Gunther picked up the victory in his Mazda. Not only won the race, but was able to snipe the regular season championship from Matt Haas, and he carried a ton of bonus playoff points into the postseason. Dylan Young to the lead. Now Keith Batson will look to his inside as we are 4 wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like 7 rows deep all the way around this racetrack. Mitchell Collins now looking to make a move here. These bonus points for laps led could be very important for the drivers trying to point their way up into the top 10, but also for drivers trying to get wildcard spots, because remember, if we end up having a bunch of one-time winners, it's going to come down to really who's the highest in the point standings of them as to who's going to get those final few seeded wildcard spots, more than likely the 14th, 15th, and 16th seeds. We're 5 wide back there and leaning on each other. That was Charles Sanford, Reggie Fogelman. Oh, and we're wrecking! Wreck on the back straightaway. And we'll have to figure out who was involved and what playoff implications there may be as we're racing back here to our first caution of the day. Matt Haas out in front. Matt Haas, who was in the conversation for the points lead at the end of last year's regular season race, struggling this year, but he will lead them back to the caution, which takes place on lap number 5. Did this first yellow flag of the day end the playoff hopes of some drivers? Let's find out who was collected. Nathan Ormond involved, our winner from Watkins Glen. He was mathematically ineligible from advancing into the playoffs, regardless if he won or not, but there's some damage on the right side and rear of Austin LaPlante. And while that doesn't have implications of him making it into the playoffs, that may hurt him in battling for the regular season championship. Trey Wright with damage as well. Tough break for him in his first start. Jessica Shelton looks like she's got the back end pushed in, the 2-time winner, fighting for a wild card spot. Zach Rogers down here in the grass. Not sure what's going on with him. Something amiss on the Ghost Citrus Chevrolet. Zach Rogers trying to fight for a wild card spot. Ryan Brommer also with some damage there, it appeared. Reggie Fogelman's got some damage, making his first appearance with Haas Racing, a team that he'll be with full-time next year, season 8. And maybe some damage as well for a former winner here, Jesse Turner. I think there's also some right side damage on RJ Bishop, maybe a little front end damage on Carson Gum. Oh, and then there's a contact on pit road between Zach Rogers and Reese Banks. I don't know if Banks is going to miss his pit stall or not. Let's watch this battle off of pit lane, which is going to be won by Matt Haas. Charles Sanford coming into his pit stall. It'll be Will Goss coming out second. Then Connor Breton, Dustin Bolin, and Ryan Butcher, our winner from last week at Bristol Dirt. 3 wide coming off pit road there. That's ironic. Caleb Vogler and Kyle Matthews coming off side by side. They've got some history with each other here at Auto Club, which we'll be documenting in just a little bit. Let's take a look at what brought out this yellow flag. By the way, the 31 of Dylan Poteet is still sitting in his pit stall. So Poteet, it is looking like, unless we end up having some drivers out of the race and Poteet's able to salvage something, it's looking like Dylan Poteet may finish dead last today and drop out of the top 10 in overall points. Here's a look at what brought out the caution off of turn 4. I think maybe Zach Rogers was on the bottom of that 5 wide, pushed up into RJ Bishop. Nathan Norman gets a shot there. James Qualls, 3-time winner, didn't see him collected. So 2 of the 4 drivers that are battling for the regular season championship got involved in this one, along with the 48 of Austin LaPlante. Jessica Shelton, Ryan Brommer also collected up in it. Let's take a look at the helicopter cam, and you'll see not only a 5-wide situation with the drivers involved, but they were 5 wide ahead of them also, and somehow they didn't wreck. See Gunther and Sanford and Miles and Osborne all pushing into each other, but they were able to all keep it together. This group did not. And Jesse Turner did get a piece. Look at Chris Dollerton sneaking by on the outside, and Cody Lamas no lift as he flew through the incident and picked up multiple spots as a result. So caution going to be out here for the first time today. Looks like one driver out of the race, and it's going to be a tough Haas Racing debut for Reggie Fogelman. Had to race his way in on speed since the charter he had with Northeast Motorsports does not transfer over with him. He'll be having to also qualify in on speed in the next 4 races, including our first playoff race next week at Gateway, as he'll be making some more starts there with Haas Racing. But it looks like he will be finishing at least in the 41st position if Poteet is not able to get back out there. Poteet's still sitting on pit road. We've got 40 cars on the track running right now, and those 40 cars are on the lead lap. Matt Haas going to be the leader when we go back green. Will Goss looking like he could point his way into the playoffs and not have to rely on a high-seeded wildcard spot. He restarts in second. Connor Breton trying to make his way back into the top 30. He is third. Destin Bolin, who's locked into the playoffs, he is going to restart fourth. And Ryan Butcher, looking for back-to-back wins, will restart in the 5th position. Anthony McCurry right now in 6th. Matthew Rodriguez up in the 7th spot. Then it'll be Caleb Fogler, Kyle Matthews, and Quentin Moore, the top 10. Mentioned about it was kind of ironic to see Caleb Fogler and Kyle Matthews coming off of pit lane side by side. They've got some fond memories here of Auto Club. Their teammate then, Stephen Pollard III, back in Season 5, went to victory lane here, securing the 09 into the playoffs. And Pollard, Fogler, and Matthews would go on to win the championship for S3 Motorsports. This track has actually produced a few first-time winners as well, including Casey Nanico, who was driving then for Auto Junction Racing. Other former winners at this racetrack included William Brock, who drove the 88 out of Northeast Motorsports. Adam Garcia, that year he was driving the number 23 out of Young Motorsports. And we mentioned about Stephen Pollard III getting his first career win here back in Season 5. Only 2 former winners at Auto Club are even in the field. Nick Gunther, we already documented the defending winner of this race. Jesse Turner was the other winner, and that was back in Season 3. And Turner got a piece of that last incident. Driver just came to pit road, Benjamin Miles, who started on the outside of the front row, and they just pushed his car back behind the wall. Mechanical issue for that driver out of Northeast Motorsports. Tough break for him. He had a good run going. Great qualifying position this afternoon. He's going to finish the day at least in the 40th, maybe 41st position. Again, a lot kind of hanging on what the future holds for the 31 of Dylan Poteet as they continue to still work on his car on pit road. Green flag back in the air on lap 10 of 63. Will Goss with the jump to the outside. Tried to time that restart. Now wants to tuck back in line. But Connor Breton will fill the hole that he left. And Breton will look to slide by for the 2nd spot. So right now, Connor Breton with where he's running, Matthew Rodriguez with where he's running, look like they would still be inside the top 30 in points at the conclusion of this one. That is bad news for drivers like Zach Rogers and Levi McIntyre. Rogers, who we saw was on the apron. Oh, wreck! And it's, oh my gosh, right up at the front of the field. This is going to be a lot of drivers. A lot of drivers going to be collected in this. The whole front straightaway is littered with race cars. And that was with our leader, well, then leader, Matt Haas. And I don't know what just happened there. I just suddenly saw the 8 car around. I was looking over at our running order because I was going to try and figure out where McIntyre and Rogers were, but It may be academic at this point because the caution flag is out. Anthony McCrory inherits the race lead. And what the heck just happened there? I gotta go back and figure this one out because I don't... Did the 8 have a problem? Here it is again. It's like the 8 all of a sudden, his speed decreased. Was he trying to come to pit road? It was like Matt Haas felt he had a problem and he was trying to hit pit lane. Well, that car comes to a stop right here. He wasn't even able to get it refired. Did the engine just die? If it was something as simple as maybe a tire going down, then he would have left the scene of the accident. The hit he just took there in that wreck would not have been enough to kill the motor. He had a problem. That car just all of a sudden started losing speed. He realized it, and I think he was trying to get down out of harm's way, but he was in the middle of the traffic there. They had split him 3 wide, and there was nowhere for him to go. And let's take a look at the end result of all this, because Kyle Matthews ended up with a lot of damage. Jessica Schulten, I know, was in that. Who else was in that? Ryan Butcher, Caleb Fogler, Daniel Voiles gets shot down to the inside, Dylan Young, Keith Batson, Jesse Turner, there's Shelton. And I think they still wreck further up here too. Voiles spun into victory lane. Well, I guess because they had taken the caution, a lot of drivers actually slowed their speed. Daniel Voiles, I think, might have shot down into the inside wall potentially. Boy, that was a strange one. Watch this here with Voiles. I think Quentin Moore got shot down to pit road, and I think he may have hit the pit wall. Yeah, Voiles gets the inside wall there. It slides right into victory lane. 89 of Quentin Moore was the one that got door banged when the 8 was trying to get out of line. Oh no. Oh no! Oh my gosh. That's the driver's side compartment that hit that area of the pit wall there. That is scary. Let's look at that from another angle. Oh my gosh. Well, unfortunately, our camera angle did not pick it up all that well. Let's see if this one does any better. Yeah, it's like, I think Matt Haas, his car, something went wrong. Oh man, I can't get over just the area that car hit. If it had been the back end or the passenger side, I wouldn't be as worried, but wow. But going back to the Matt Haas situation, he slowed, and I think he got a bump from behind from Connor Breton. And that's what kind of sent him down the racetrack into Quentin Moore. Dylan Young is trying to make his way into the playoffs via top 10 in points. He took a pretty good shot there into Keith Batson, who's also trying to point his way into the playoffs. Dylan Young does have a wild card spot he could fall back on, though. He is right now, when we began this race, in the 3rd wild card spot. If Breton makes his way back into the top 30 in points, he would then fall into the 4th wild card spot. But he and Batson and Jesse Turner, a lot of drivers with damage, and we've got quite a number of them that are now back behind the wall. So while we were able to kind of create a checklist of who was already locked into the playoffs coming into this race, as this race progresses, we will be able to start checking off drivers that had a shot. But with the DNF, they will more than likely not be in the hunt for this championship here in Season 7. Cole Deaver has retired out of the race. He was a must-win situation today. Kyle Matthews did not have a mathematical shot, but he's also out of the race. Keith Batson. This is going to be an interesting one because he didn't have a win. So if he dropped out of the top 10 in points, he had nothing to fall back on in terms of a wild card spot, and he was 21 points ahead of the cut line. And he'll finish in 35th, so that will be one we'll have to keep an eye on here. Jesse Turner was already locked into the playoffs, so he will suffer a DNF, but that will not have any postseason repercussions. Maybe some momentum will be lost to start the postseason. Dylan Young, as we mentioned, he is high enough seeded that he should get one of at least the last 2 wild card spots, but his DNF today in 37th makes that very interesting. He won't point his way into the top 10, we know that much. Matt Haas is still sitting on pit road, so he is 2 laps down right now. Actually, no, he's returned to the track, I should say, and he's going to gain a ton of positions as a result. Also out of the race are the cars of Quentin Moore. Quentin was in a must-win situation here today. Benjamin Miles, as we mentioned, he came to pit road at the end of the last caution with an engine gearbox issue, so he will be 40th, and Reggie Fogelman also out of the race after the first wreck in 41st. Dylan Poteet still sits on pit road. They have still not gotten him out there. So if Dylan Poteet falls outside of the top 10 in points, that makes things interesting for the wildcard spots as well, because Poteet would have to fall into a wildcard position. Caleb Fogler is also way back in the field in 27th, and he also has a win. Only 7 points ahead of the top 10 standings in the cut line coming into this one, so he also could be in danger of falling out of the top 10 and make things very congested for the wildcard conversation. Connor Breeton's still on the racetrack, and he's running in 12th, so he still could make his way back up into the top 30 in points, as Anthony McCurry's Mazda is going to get us back under the green. Mazda looking for back-to-back victories here at Auto Club Speedway. Nick Gunther, the defending winner. That was one of his 4 victories on the season last year. Dustin Bolin, who knows he's going playoff racing, will line up in 2nd. Matthew Rodriguez with still a great run in 3rd. Jose Mills right now in 4th, and Laura Chung in the 5th position. Jose Mills in a must-win situation coming into today. Cody Lamas is now up to 6th. Nick Gunther in 7th. Joshua Osborne, Matt McIntyre, and pole sitter Charles Sanford are going to complete the top 10. We've got 33 cars on the racetrack, 32 of them on the lead lap. Matt Haas going to try and get the lap he's lacking back the hard way here on this restart, as Anthony will take the green. So Cole Deaver, Quentin Moore, we know they are not going to be in the playoffs. I'm very worried about Keith Batson. I think this was going to eliminate him from advancing into the playoffs. He needs Caleb Fogler and Will Goss and Ryan Butcher, Reese Banks to all have really bad points days, as Matt Haas damaged and off the pace, holding up drivers in that latter half of the top 10. Anthony McCurry going to get a challenge for the race lead. Destin Bolin looking low. Destin began the playoffs last year with 3 victories. This year he's been very consistent, but he hasn't found victory lane. He'll have his 2nd playoff berth, but he'd love to have some bonus points, some bonus playoff points heading into the postseason. Drivers end up getting bonus points either by being the regular season champions, where they get 15 bonus points, or by wins. And you get 5 bonus points for each win that you get. So in the case of James Qualls and Casey Hoyt, they both know they're guaranteed to have at least 15 bonus points heading into the playoffs, and they want to add to it. Levi McIntyre now taking it 3 wide with 3 Mustangs. Mills was in the middle, Bolin was up top side, McIntyre to the point, but now Connor Breeton shuffles him to the outside. Levi McIntyre coming into this one in the 20th position in points. But remember, the driver he's trying to battle right now would be Zach Rogers. He's got to at least remain ahead of him. But with Dylan Young out of the race, Dylan Poteet struggling, not even on the racetrack right now, I would say, just based off of my current rough calculations, both Levi McIntyre and Zachary Fitzwater are out. Especially with the fact, too, the 88 is running up here inside of the top 5. He'd be back in the top 30, if my math is correct also. Casey Hoyt, I think he might be he and Rob Evans might be the only two drivers that were mathematically in the hunt for the regular season championship they haven't mentioned here today. LaPlante was involved in the first caution, as was James Qualls. Now, Qualls is at the tail end of this pack. LaPlante is trying to keep in touch, but I believe he's got some damage. As Matt McIntyre going to lead that lap, and we're going to go 4 wide, 2 rows deep at least here. 4 wide's okay. 5 wide works, but it is sketchy. This racetrack is very spacious, but those cars on the inside line, the longer the run goes on, are going to push up. They're going to get tight heading on to the back and front straightaways. And that's where the 5 wide situations, not a whole lot of room is able to be given on corner exit. It kind of accordions up. They squeeze each other. And that's what leads to the contact and the eventual wrecks. We saw that quite a bit yesterday in the Duracell Ultra Light Series race, and we've seen it a couple of times already here today in the Cup race. Anthony's got a very strong Mazda, got shuffled out from the lead, worked his way back up here to the front. Laura Chung now moving into the second position. Now for Laura Chung, remember I mentioned the name Casey Nanico getting his first career win here back in, I believe it was season 2. Oh, they're going to catch a slow car of RJ Bishop there, but it was actually the number 77 car out of Auto Junction Racing that Casey Nanico went to victory lane here at Auto Club. Wasn't a next-gen car, obviously, so there is a slight bit of difference in that regard, but it was the 77 number nonetheless. RJ Bishop just held up a bunch of drivers right here, including Rob Evans. Also Michael Norman, Caleb Vogler, Levi McIntyre, Reese Banks. And they're going to lose touch with the lead group because of that. Zach Rogers going to catch up there to Levi McIntyre, so that makes things interesting between those two. Austin LaPlante right there as well. Cody Lamas looking for the top position. Last year, Cody Lamas really struggled. His first full-time season as an owner driver at Lama Racing. This season, he's looked a lot better, though down this home stretch of the regular season, the consistency that we saw has kind of tapered off. He was at one point in the conversation to maybe make his way up into the top 10 in points. But he fell down outside of the top 20. He's 22nd in points coming into this one. Again, another of the drivers that's in a must-win situation here today to even have a ghost of a shot of advancing into the playoffs. Casey Hoyt wanted the lap led. Mitchell Collins says, no. He's going to lead that lap. Mitchell Collins comes into this race only 18 points below the cut line, and we know that Dylan Young and Keith Batson and Dylan Poteet have all run into issues here today. Some opportunity for the 33 to either win or point his way into the postseason. Looks like Carson Gum is off the pace, so Carson will probably not be in the playoffs this season. He had a mathematical shot to point or win his way in, but since he's going to go a lap down, that decreases his chances significantly. Jose Mills, most winningest driver in the Duracell Next Gen Cup Series. Side by side there at the line with Connor Breeden. He'll lead that lap. Jose is in the must-win category. Cannot mathematically point his way into the top 10. He's actually the highest running in the point standings of the must-win drivers. And here comes Matthew Rodriguez in the 24 car. Now Rodriguez, it's an interesting conversation with him because he has announced, and this was way back in the season, that if he didn't advance into the playoffs, he was done for the season. He was only supposed to run a part-time schedule, but after winning the 500, a lot of scrambling took place to see if he could at least be able to battle for the championship this year. He's been in a number of different rides. He's tried qualifying in the 80 out of Haas Racing, the 17 out of Bishop Family Racing, and now behind the wheel of the Chevrolet out of Northeast Motorsports. Been a lot of effort to try and help Matthew Rodriguez to get into the postseason, and Matt Rod came into this race 5 points ahead of 30th in the standings. Knew he was going to race here this weekend. Can he close out the deal? Remember last year our Daytona 500 winner did not make it into the playoffs, and that was Chris Dalwerton, who's actually having a great run himself up here, battling side by side for second place with Joshua Osborne. Will Goss in the race lead here. As things currently stand, Will Goss would advance into the playoffs via top 10 in points, which is a huge load off the mind of drivers battling for a wild card spot, because if Will fell out of the top 10 in points, he would obviously have a high-seeded wild card position with his 2 victories on the year at North Wilkesboro and Homestead, Miami. But Will would love to have a 3rd victory. He'd love to join James Qualls and Casey Hoyt high up there in the reformatted playoff standings. And don't look now, but last year's winner is now up inside the top 5. That's Nick Gunther. Nick Gunther, unfortunately, though, will not be able to win his way into the playoffs this year. 39th in overall points. He was 50 points below the 30th in the standings cut line, so he couldn't even mathematically make his way into the top 30 if he were to win. And there's a lot of drivers ahead of him in the point standings, too, that have victories, so he wouldn't be high enough to be able to snipe a wild card spot away from them. RJ Bishop going to be slow in front of drivers again, and he's going to hold up the outside line with Destin Bolin and company, so that's going to have Northeast Motorsports teammates Matthew Rodriguez and Connor Breton side by side with each other. You know, you kind of consider this racetrack here at Auto Club as well. It has, ever since the inception of the Duracell Next Gen Cup Series, been the regular season finale venue. But last year, the change was made from Homestead being the overall season finale to Michigan. So it gives drivers here, as we got some drivers just hit pit road, it gives these drivers here an opportunity to kind of get some reps, put a notebook together for that championship race, another 2-mile speedway / super speedway. Ryan Butcher's coming to pit road, but I believe we had some lead lap cars. Yep, Cody Lamas and Joshua Osborne peeled off to pit lane. Caleb Fogler there as well. So one of the aspects of this race that we hadn't talked about yet, pit road strategy, now starting to take shape. Looks like Jose Mills may be coming in this time. Nick Gunther and also Laura Chung pitting this lap. We've seen pit road strategy make things interesting in terms of who's in and who's out playoff wise. One driver I was just looking at there when we were cycling through the field that might need to be a little bit concerned about would be Jessica Shelton. Shelton's running right now in the 26th position. Obviously damaged and off the pace as well. Came into this race a total of 29 points ahead of the cut line. So we will keep tabs on that, see if she can remain in the top 30 in points as Matthew Rodriguez and a number of others hit pit lane. That's going to turn the race lead over to Mitchell Collins in the 33. And how about James Walls? You can see he's got that front end damage still there, a little buckle on the hood after being involved in the first yellow flag, but he's up here in this lead pack. And Casey Nanico, who right now it's looking like might be the two, or not Casey Nanico, I'm sorry, Casey Hoyt, the other Casey. Those might be the two to battle it out for this regular season championship. Hoyt was 6 points behind Rob Evans. Evans is 9th place though right now. He's back in that second group. So Evans still has a chance of being regular season champ. But with Hoyt and Qualls up here in this lead group, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult for him. Evans is going to have to get back up here in this lead pack to duke it out with these guys. Connor Breton out in front, so he's got himself a bonus point for a lap led, which will help him in his quest to get up into the top 30 in points. Dollerton will peel off onto pit lane. Let's see if anybody from the second group came to pit road. Nope, there's Evans. Now 7th on the board. He's just got to keep himself within 6 positions, really, of Casey Hoyt. James Qualls has to make up a lot of ground on both Hoyt and Evans. He was 17 points behind Evans and 11 points behind Hoyt. So he'd need both of those drivers to have some issues here in the second half of this race. Qualls is coming to pit lane this time. So with LaPlante kind of out of the picture right now, although LaPlante is still up in the top 10 in the 9th spot, so maybe don't count him out just yet. It may be still between Casey Hoyt Rob Evans and Austin LaPlante for this regular season championship. Carson Gum about to go into the lap down, but the caution is out. Yellow flag is out, and this changes up everything because with the timing of this yellow, it's right in the middle of green flag pit stops, and we've got a number of drivers that are off the lead lap. And will probably end up being on the tail end of the lead lap on this upcoming restart. Mitchell Collins is going to lead them back here to the yellow. Not certain what brought the caution out. I'm assuming maybe a pit road incident. But we will have to wait and see. Also, update on Caleb Fogler in the 28. He had a mechanical problem just about 5 laps ago and has gone to the garage area. So Fogler now in danger of not advancing via top 10 in points. He may fall down into the wild card conversation, the former champion. As let's go back and first take a look at what brought the caution now, and then try and figure out all of who is going to have to try to get their laps back the hard way via tail end of the lead lap. Our scoring is only showing 12 drivers on the lead lap as things currently run. Trying to find the pace car here. And the exact moment that the yellow flag waves, and it's going to be Jessica Shelton in the 94. I don't know if there's a little rivalry going on here or if Shelton was trying to get to pit road, but she turns down into Levi McIntyre, and they continue to kind of lean on each other all the way through 3 and 4. Shelton goes around and hits with the back end of the race car, further damaging the back bumper, and that spin out brings out the yellow flag here for the 3rd time today. And makes things very interesting in terms of our running order, as you got your lead lap cars that have just now hit pit road. Mitchell Collins was the leader. Let's see if he leaves pit road with the top spot. Connor Breeden going to try and drag race him off pit road for it. Not going to happen. So Collins will win the battle off pit road. So he will start at the tail end of the field, Will Mitchell Collins. But he will do so as the race leader, I do believe. You're going to have a bunch of drivers that are going to be on the tail end of the lead lap. Starting with this driver, Chris Dollerton. I believe from Dollerton back to... I'm going to wait for scoring to update, but I think from like Dollerton maybe back to Levi McIntyre in 25th. Those drivers will be scored on the tail end of the lead lap. And the tough break for these drivers here is the fact that unless they get a caution, they're not going to really be able to advance any higher than 8th place. Which means the battle for the win is going to be compartmentalized between really 7 drivers. Scoring is going to update itself this time around. It's reading off of when the drivers, the lead lap cars, were on pit road when they crossed the start finish line as opposed to these other drivers. And we will figure out exactly who is on the tail end of the lead lap here with a shot of getting back on the lead lap if we were to get another yellow flag. But of the lead lap cars, as we got some of the lap machines pitting, it's going to be Mitchell Collins who's the leader, Connor Breeden in 2nd, Casey Hoyt 3rd, Zach Rogers is now 4th, with Michael Norman, Zachary Fitzwater, and Ryan Brommer, the drivers that are going to be in the conversation for this win unless something changes. 1st through 7th, going to start at the very tail end of the field. Chris Dollerton is 8th, James Qualls 9th, Matt McIntyre 10th. They're at the front of the field, but on the tail end of the lead lap. And it's actually all the way back through 28th place, Nathan Ormond, the drivers that are on the tail end of the lead lap. So look at what this does in terms of the conversation for the race win. The drivers that are in the hunt for it. Mitchell Collins can win his way into the playoffs. He can also point his way into the playoffs. Connor Breeden, with the fact that right now, the worst he could finish, barring a mechanical problem, would be 7th place. He's going to be in the top 30 in the standings. So he could be locked in. Casey Hoyt, this puts him front and center into maybe taking the regular season championship. Zach Rogers, oh, we got a caution light still on. I think somebody was coming to pit road here. But Zach Rogers, he could maybe get a second victory as he is trying to fight for the last wild card spot potentially. Michael Norman, he can win his way into the playoffs in a must-win situation. Zachary Fitzwater could be getting his second win on the season and leapfrog all the drivers ahead of him and be in the playoffs, be a wild card spot. And then Ryan Brommer, I don't know where he would be positioned after all that if he were to win. He is in a must-win situation, we know that much. But I don't know if we've had enough happen here where he could get in the conversation, especially with the fact that it looks like at this point in time, both Matthew Rodriguez and Connor Breton will remain in the top 30 in points. I believe I just saw the 12 of Destin Bolin coming off of pit lane. Destin is a lap down, as are RJ Bishop, Carson Gum, Matt Haas, Trey Wright, and it looks like now also Will Goss in the 11. Now we already know Destin Bolin and Will Goss, a couple of teammates out of Young Motorsports, are locked into the playoffs. But this could potentially, if Will Goss continues to run where he's at, which scoring has him 26th, this could drop him out of the top 10 in points. So we're looking at Chris Dollerton to lead us to green, but he is in the 8th position. Once he takes the green, we'll drop to the tail end of the field and watch what will be the battle for the race lead and the battle of drivers trying to stay on the tail end of the lead lap. 32 drivers running, 28 of them on the lead lap, and the green flag will be back in the air. So we still got a long ways to go in this one as well. We've still got, I think, at least one more pit stop before the conclusion. And there's going to be some slow cars up ahead there that were on the inside line as lap machines that these leaders are going to have to deal with when they catch them. Trey Wright's on the very inside line holding up drivers, and that's the line that Mitchell Collins is currently running in. Casey Hoyt is right behind him. Make that Connor Breton, then Casey Hoyt behind Breton. Kind of relying on the 33 to cut his way through, get them through this traffic. Some of it lap traffic, some of it drivers on the tail end of the lead lap. Connor Breton will look to the inside now of Mitchell Collins. This is for the race lead between the 33 and the 88. 74 looking on, and then the 66 of Zachary Fitzwater in the 4th position, trying to close up. Breton will take the lead after Collins got stuck behind Joshua Osborne. So a duo of 3-time winners, a couple of rookies as well, Hoyt and Breton duking it out for the top spot as they make their way around Daniel Voiles, putting him down a lap. Uh-oh, somebody I think just went through the grass. That was Matt McIntyre. Is the caution out? It is not. We are still green. Oh, but there's a wreck up there. I think I just saw him into turn 1. Ryan Brommer and Destin Bolin have gotten together. Caution is out, and this is the break that a bunch of drivers wanted to be able to get back on the tail end of the lead lap. Let's go up to the 33, or the 88 rather. No, actually it's the 74. He's going to put Matt Haas a lap down. LaPlante's going to fight to stay on the tail end of the lead lap. James Qualls trying to stay on the tail end of the lead lap as well. LaPlante's going to be put one down. Qualls up onward are going to be able to cycle around to the tail end of the field. They needed that yellow flag. That was a big, big break for them. And now they got to get it all figured out of who was on the lead lap, who was a lap down when they came to the stripe. You see a bunch of them going around the pace car there. Austin LaPlante having to stay back behind as he was kept a lap down, as were Matt Haas, Daniel Voiles, Levi McIntyre, Joshua Osborne, Ryan Butcher, Nathan Ormond. Jessica Shelton might have come to pit lane under that caution period, or under that green flag run period, I should say, because she's currently scored a lap down. Also a lap down, Matt McIntyre. and Destin Bolin, but I believe both of them are on pit lane. Let's take a look at what brought the yellow flag out here. Now, Matt McIntyre was the first car I saw out of shape. I think he got potentially spun off of turn 4. Well, it looks like something went wrong. As he pulls down into the grass. And then let's find the 12 of Destin Bolin right there. Oh gosh, I think Matt hit the pit wall. He hit the pit road wall exiting, and it shot him back up the track right in front of Destin Bolin and Jessica Shelton. Well, Destin Bolin's got to be feeling very happy about the fact that he is locked into the playoffs, because it has not been a good day for driver 12. Jessica Shelton, who right now is just on razor's edge whether she's going to be in via a wildcard spot or not. This may actually end her day. Yeah, Matt McIntyre just hits the pit wall. Here he goes into Destin Bolin, and then Destin gets clipped by Ryan Brommer. Kind of shreds the right front. And Ryan Brommer immediately, with black smoke trailing from underneath, probably laying down some fluid there as well. And that leads to our 4th caution of the day here at Auto Club. Remember when I said a lot of moving pieces? I didn't expect they were going to be moving quite as much. There's so much for us to have to keep track of right now. Take a look here again from the right side. Matt McIntyre shoots up the racetrack into Shelton, into Destin Bolin. And Ryan Brommer, who we have a report is out of the race now because of that contact, was in a must-win situation and needed a lot of help. He is done for the day, and his playoff hopes are done as well. Ryan Brommer, a former runner-up for the championship. That was back in Season 2, if I recall correctly. Lost out just barely to Ryan Acosta. All the drivers that got back in the tail end lead lap, most of them coming to pit lane here. Connor Breton going to be the race leader when we go back to racing. Looks like Trey Wright in his first start of the season. That's going to end behind the wall. He was out there running without a hood, and they have finally called it a day. Jessica Shelton is now going back behind the wall. Still have to wait and see where she's officially going to finish this race, but is that her playoff hopes done? Shelton in the Project Dodge Intrepid out of S3 Motorsports, really at this point in time the only driver that has a shot, with maybe the exception of Charles Sanford if he were to win today, of an S3 Motorsports car winning the championship in 3 straight seasons. They've done it so far in back-to-back seasons with the 09 and the 03. Shelton really had the best opportunity to keep the three-peat alive. Remember, she was a total of 29 points ahead of the cut line. And we will have to wait and see where she officially finishes this race. There's going to be a lot of drivers around her that she's going to have to hope run into some problems here today. She cannot afford to drop out of the top 30, or else those 2 victories, they count for nothing. Looks like also out of the race, Matt McIntyre. He was in a must-win situation today to advance into the playoffs. A tough break for him. RJ Bishop has also retired from the race, along with Destin Bolin. So things going south in a hurry for 50% of Young Motorsports. And Destin Bolin, as we mentioned, though, is already locked into the playoffs via top 10 in points. Mathematically could not fall out of the top 10 here today. Built up enough of a cushion. So this yellow flag has us with 18 drivers on the lead lap. We'll have a total of, looks like 8 drivers on the inside line, varying from 1 lap down to 2 laps down. All drivers on that inside line are 1 lap down, with the exception of Carson Gum, who is -2. And added into the 1 lap down party are Austin LaPlante, who's fighting for the regular season championship, Levi McIntyre, who's looking for a wild card spot, Carson Gum, who's trying to point his way into the top 10, and Ryan Butcher, who won last week and is fighting potentially for a wild card spot or to maybe get into the top 10 in overall standings as well. He was -8 below the 10th in standings cut line coming into this one. Connor Breeden, Casey Hoyt, Mitchell Collins, Zachary Fitzwater, and Michael Norman, though, will be the top 5 as we get ready to go back green. Zach Rogers, Laura Chung, Rob Evans, Will Goss, and James Qualls, the top 10. Then it's Nick Gunther 11th, Charles Sanford 12th, Anthony McCurry 13th, Jose Mills, Chris Dollarton the top 15, then Cody Lamas, Matthew Rodriguez, and Reese Banks are the last drivers on the lead lap, potentially in the conversation for this win, which will be with 18 laps to go when we get back underway. Fuel should no longer be a concern if they all came to pit road under this yellow flag. They should be good to make it the rest of the way as Connor Breeden will take the green flag for our 4th restart of the day here at Auto Club. Remember last year, Northeast Motorsports put a rookie behind the wheel. William Brock had been behind the wheel, the 88, for season after season after season, but it was Jack Dunnard who was the new signee, and he not only went to victory lane, but also was in the Final Four to compete for the championship. They didn't re-sign him. They put Connor Breeden in the car this year. Breeden has rewarded them with 3 trips to victory lane, and now trying to clinch a playoff spot. Be back-to-back seasons that a rookie in the 88 car has advanced into the playoffs. These lap machines here playing havoc. Nathan Ormond in the 23 is not on the lead lap. He split 3 wide there with Will Goss on the bottom. Lap car Levi McIntyre on the top. How about Rob Evans in the 65? Battling for that regular season championship. Now up here with James Qualls and Casey Hoyt, and ahead of them both, Evans is still looking for that first career win, and we mentioned the fact that Casey Nanico and Stephen Paulwood III got their very first wins here at Auto Club. Could Rob Evans be the 3rd driver? And somebody coming off of pit lane there. It might have been the 24 of Matthew Rodriguez. It was. He's going to go a lap down. We'll have to keep updated on that. Yep, Dylan Poteet still sitting on pit lane. He has been really ever since the start of this race. They've still yet to get him out there, and there's a lot of points up for grabs if they can just get him out there to complete about 10 laps. He could move from 42nd up to 33rd or 34th. As Charles Sanford trying to pull off coast to coast. Not this time by, but the previous lap, he just ran his fastest lap of the race. We know he's got a fast machine. Started from the pole position here today. Jose Mills goes to the point, and look at how quickly Reese Banks, who restarted back in the 18th position, last car on the lead lap, has made his way up to the front. Reese Banks, tell you what, looking pretty good right now for all 3 of the Lake Effect Autosport cars to advance. Reese Banks, I think, could point his way into the top 10. He was only 12 points below the cut line, and look at all the drivers ahead of him that have run into issues. Ryan Butcher's a lap down, Dylan Young's out of the race, Kevin Boga's out of the race, Keith Batson's out of the race, Dylan Poteet's multiple laps down. I think Reese Banks has got a mathematical shot of maybe advancing into the playoffs this year. A former winner from Talladega last year. Been consistent this season, just hasn't been able to get up into the top 10. He's kind of hovered from 10th through 13th most of the second half of this regular season. Anthony McCurry trying to win his way into the playoffs. 25th in overall points right now coming into this one. Still a lot that we don't know that could play out here in these final, now 13 laps. I've also been trying to look and see if there's any drivers we can confirm are going to be advancing into the playoffs outside of those that we announced at the beginning of the day, and it doesn't look like we can really say that about anybody right now. Zach Rogers is looking good, but there's still the question mark about Shelton and Rodriguez and Breeden, where they're going to be as far as above or below the 30th standings cut line after this, because Rodriguez has now gone a lap down. Back in 25th, Shelton is out of the race. Breeden's looking good to advance into the top 30 as he's been up in this lead pack all day. As a matter of fact, Connor Breeden, I believe, has led the second most laps here today at 8. Anthony McCurry has actually led the most laps. He just led his 11th circuit. And now he'll get split 3 wide with his Mazda teammate Nick Gunther going to the bottom, looking for back-to-back wins here at Auto Club. 3 wide, 4 wide, all the way back through this group. You've got lead lap and lap down cars in this pack. Nathan Ormond and Levi McIntyre off the lead lap, but obviously up to speed and able to be competitive as Rob Evans clears around the top of the lead, and they're catching the slower car of Carson Gum. Carson Gum's another interesting one when you look at all the drivers that have struggled today. I mean, he's right now in the 26th position, 2 laps down, but if we get another couple of wrecks, more drivers out of the race, could a car that is minus now 3 be able to point his way in via top 10? I don't know. Laura Chung just hit pit road in the 77. I don't think that's scheduled, but maybe it is. Maybe fuel is still a concern for these drivers. Broke the field up. You got 5 drivers that have split off when they were trying to get around Carson Gum. Breeden, the lap car of McIntyre, then Collins, Mills, and Sanford. Mitchell Collins is looking good to point his way into the playoffs via top 10. I also was wondering about Chris Dollerton. Dollerton was 23 points below the cut line of 10th in the standings coming to this one, and he's in the lead group. It's going to be so, so close. And I'm really going to be curious to see if Poteet and Fogler fall out of the top 10 in points. What does that do for the wild card battle? We're going to have, I said this at the beginning of the season, even though we have kind of redone the criteria of making it into the postseason, giving as much emphasis on consistency as we do on wins. We've had, even with the old playoff system, and what it took to be able to get into the postseason, we have had drivers that have gone to victory lane that have not advanced into battling for the championship. And I feel like we're going to be doing the exact same thing again here this season, but maybe at least for me, in trying to do the math in my head, the most confusing season in trying to figure out who's going to be in and who's going to be out. 3 wide for the lead. Collins gets put in the middle. Sanford to the bottom. Breeden put on the top side. A driver has never gone coast to coast here at Auto Club. Charles Sanford trying to be the first. This is a home track for him as well, and trying to legitimately win his way into the playoffs. He's in a must-win situation. He does not have enough of a mathematical chance to point his way up into the top 10 in the standings. He absolutely has to win here today. Casey Hoyt would love to lead all drivers with 4 victories here in the regular season to start the playoffs. He's clear for the top position. Now Zachary Fitzwater right there. Must-win situation really for him to leapfrog all the one-time winners and jump up into a high wild card seed. He'll be almost 4 wide as they're going to shuffle out Reese Banks. Anthony McCurry charging back up the inside. Will Goss right there with him. Nick Gunther. And then you got some drivers that are just kind of hanging out at the tail end of this lead pack. Zach Rogers is back there. James Qualls, Joshua Osborne. Don't think we've heard the last of them. Rob Evans right there as well. Got 26 cars running here, 16 of them on the lead lap, and realistically it looks like about 13, 14 of those drivers have a shot at this victory. Chris Dollerton is kind of faded back and lost this group. Cody Lamas as well. They'd need a little bit of help to get back up in this lead group, have a shot at this victory. Actually, I believe Cody is way, way back. No, he has a shot. He's still got a drafting partner there. He just needs these guys up here to really, really mix it up, as Michael Norman led that lap. 4 laps to go here at Auto Club. Hopefully we finish it under green. And one of the drivers in this group here could easily win their way into a postseason berth. Rob Evans with his teammate Zachary Fitzwater on that inside line there, trying to close out a regular season championship. The only driver right now that could have anything to say about it would be Casey Hoyt, and he would need to finish 7 positions ahead of Rob Evans, which there are 7 positions up for grabs in this lead group. Fitzwater going to lead that lap, 3 to go. Now Mitchell Collins takes a look to the inside. If I'm Mitchell Collins, I'm not doing anything too dangerous here in trying to get this race win. Yeah, you want the checkered flag, but I think he's in great shape of advancing in to the playoffs via top 10, and we've got the slower car of Carson Gum coming up again. With 2.5 laps to go, this is going to make things very sketchy. You're going to have to pick the right line here. And they're going to catch him off of turn 4. Oh, where do they go? He's going to jump up to the top side trying to get out of the way, and it's going to stall out Mitchell Collins and Zachary Fitzwater. 2 to go as Jose Mills now takes the lead in the 38. Levi McIntyre mixing things up here as a lap car. Levi trying to finish the best position he can of the lap machines. He's battling right now with the 27 of Joshua Osborne for 17th. Levi trying to keep himself in the wild card conversation. And maybe playing some defense for a former teammate in Jose Mills. Remember, Levi drove for Blue Oval Automotive at one time. White flag will be in the air this time by Mills. Has left the door open. Will Goss, Rob Evans, they could be in line to capitalize here. Casey Hoyt takes it 3 wide for around the 4th position. 3 wide for the lead. Evans, Goss, Mills. Evans will forge ahead. Casey Hoyt looking to maybe make a move here for the race lead, for the race win. He'll take it 3 wide. Nick Gunther's right there. Could maybe Nick Gunther go back to back? Hoyt moves up the track. Gunther goes to the inside. We're drag racing back to the stripe. Gunther looks like he's got the advantage, and he does! Nick Gunther finally breaks back into victory lane. He's going to capture his first checkered flag of the season, the 6th of his career, and he will go back-to-back here at Auto Club Speedway. But what does that do for the playoffs? Because Gunther was one of the drivers that came into this race. Regardless of if he won, he was not going to be able to get into the playoffs. So we didn't have a different driver win their way into the postseason. So that now all throws up all the question marks of who's in and who is out. But well done for Nick Gunther. Mazda finally gets back to victory lane. Took him a long time here after 4 victories last season. 1 season ago, he won the regular season championship, and I believe it was his 3rd win on the year. And here today with an incredible pass out of turn 4 on the very last lap, Nick Gunther is a winner here in season 7. 32 1,000ths of a second, it says he won over Casey Hoyt. And we'll have to see, I believe, Rob Evans, who brings it home in the 4th position. Yes, indeed. He is going to be the regular season championship. And he will obviously be carrying some very valuable bonus points into the postseason. We're waiting for all of the calculations and everything to be completed. And Nick Gunther with the victory. All right, folks, we are going to quickly step aside. We'll come back. We'll give you your full Fisher results and everything. But we want to do this correctly before we make the announcement of who is in and who is out. So bear with us. We'll be right back in just a moment and give you the 16 drivers that are battling this season in the playoffs after today's regular season finale. All right, we are back. The points have been calculated. Let's first take you through the finishing results for today's race from Auto Club. Nick Gunther with the victory. Casey Hoyt gave it a heck of a shot for those 15 bonus points for the regular season championship, but the 3-time winner will advance into the playoffs, finishing 2nd. Reese Banks, did he do enough to point his way into the playoffs via top 10? He brings it home on the podium in 3rd. Rob Evans captures the regular season championship with 4th. Michael Norman brings it home in 5th. Michael was in the must-win situation. He was the borderline last driver that mathematically could maybe point his way in via top 10. Did he do enough today? We'll have to wait and see. Zach Rogers, really tight situation for him and Levi McIntyre coming into this one. They were both down near the cut line for the wild card positions, especially if Breton made his way back up in the top 30. Was sixth place enough to clinch himself a wild card spot? Jose Mills brings it home in seventh. He was in a must-win, so doesn't look like he will be advancing into the playoffs. Mitchell Collins, did he do enough? He was close, points-wise, to get into the top 10 in the standings, and he brings it home in eighth. Anthony McCurry was in a must-win. He'll get a solid run here today, though, in ninth. Both the Monsters bringing it home inside of the top 10. And Will Goss, who knew that he was going to be in either via top 10 or a wild card spot, good momentum there for the rookie as he's going to finish out in the 10th position. Connor Breton, I believe he's done enough. He was up in the lead for a time. He was up in the lead pack all day long. I think he's done enough to get back into the top 30 in points, so I think he will be going playoff racing. Charles Sanford, unfortunately, he will not. The defending champion will bring it home in the 12th position. Not enough for him to be able to get locked in to the playoffs. James Qualls, he'll be playoff racing, three-time winner. He was the long shot for the regular season championship, was 17 points out, but still good momentum, a top 15 run in 13th. Zachary Fitzwater going to bring it home in 14th place. I don't know if that's going to be enough for him because he was outside of the playoffs coming into this one. He finishes behind Zach Rogers and not much further ahead of Levi McIntyre, so I don't think he closed up that gap enough, and if Breton indeed did make it back into the top 30 in points, then Fitzwater would be way outside of the playoff picture. Tough break there for our Mid-Ohio winner, and Chris Dollerton going to bring it home in the 15th spot. I don't know about Dollerton. He was a driver that was another of the long shots to point his way in, like Michael Norman. 15th place. If Norman didn't make it in, Dollerton definitely didn't make it in because he finishes 10 positions lower in 15th spot. And Cody Lamas was the last driver to finish on the lead lap in 16th. Cody was in an absolute must-win situation coming to this one, so he will unfortunately not advance into the postseason either. Levi McIntyre is a big question mark. First car one lap down, so he finished the highest he possibly could in the position he was in 17th place. But remember, he and Zach Rogers, they were in that borderline conversation. Rogers finished well. McIntyre finished okay, but was it enough? We'll have to wait and see. Daniel Voiles, Joshua Osborne, Austin LaPlante, the top 20. LaPlante was in the regular season conversation. Already knew he was going to be advancing in via top 10 in points, but 20th place, maybe not the best momentum for him heading into the playoffs next week at Gateway. Matthew Rodriguez brings it home in the 24th position. Did he stay in the top 30 in standings? Was that enough? We'll have to wait and see. Ryan Butcher, did he do enough to get a wild card spot? Because remember, he was in, I believe it was the 4th wild card spot coming into this race. He was the second highest in the point standings with a victory, but only with one victory, right behind Dylan Young. And he's going to finish a lap down in 25th. Not sure. Was that enough? Jessica Shelton, big question mark. 28th out of the race. Is she in the top 30 in points? If she's in the top 30 in points, she's in a wild card spot with her 2 victories. Destin Bolin, we know, is going playoff racing. He finishes in 32nd out of the race, though. He was high enough in the point standings to not fall out of the top 10. Caleb Fogler, I think he's going to drop out of the top 10 in points, but does his victory clinch him a playoff position? Keith Batson, pretty sure he's fallen out of the top 10 in the point standings, I would think. Did he have enough of a cushion? I don't think so. 36th is where he finishes the day. Jesse Turner, we knew, was already locked in via top 10 in points, but he'll suffer a DNF. Dylan Young, he was just outside the top 10 in points, so he was in a wild card position, the 3rd seed coming into this race. But he DNFs in 38th. Where is he positioned now? Is he still in a wild card spot? You've also got Dylan Poteet, who fell out of the top 10 in points, I'm pretty sure, with a DNF in 42nd. I don't think he had enough of a cushion to preserve a spot in the top 10 in the standings. Where does that win put him, maybe, in a wild card position? We'll have to wait and see, as he ended up finishing dead last. And not the finish that Reggie Fogelman was looking for here in his first start for Haas Racing. He'll look to qualify in the field next week again at Gateway. But all right, we've shown you the full picture results. We've kept you waiting long enough. Let's take a look at the point standings and figure out who is in and who is not. These are the point standings at the conclusion of this one. So via top 10 in points, Rob Evans, by 4 points, wins the regular season championship over Casey Hoyt. Austin LaPlante, James Qualls, Destin Bolin, Jesse Turner, Will Goss jumps up 3 spots to 7th. Poteet and Batson stayed in. They barely stayed in. They will advance via top 10 in points, and Reese Banks is going to snipe the 10th position. All three of the Lake Effect Autosports cars are going championship racing here this season. So those 10 drivers are in via top 10 in points. Now let's look at the wildcard spots. Look down at 26th, 27th, and 28th in points. Your 3-time and 2-time winners, Shelton, Breton, Rodriguez, all above the cut line. They are locked in the first 3 seeded wildcard positions. Breton, then Shelton, then Rodriguez. They did enough to be in the top 30 in points, and they will advance into the postseason. So that leaves 3 wildcard spots available. 3 wildcard spots to the 3 highest one-time winners in points. Caleb Fogler will get the 4th seed for the wildcard drivers, 12th in overall points. Ryan Butcher dropped 2 spots to 14th, but he'll get the 2nd seed. And look at this. Zach Rogers and Dylan Young are tied for 16th in points at 579 points each. You know what that means? They are both going playoff racing. We were planning for 16 playoff drivers, but because we have a tie for the 16th and final seed, both drivers are going to advance into the postseason to battle for the championship. This granted means we're going to have 5 drivers eliminated after the first round as opposed to 4, but how about that? Zach Rogers, who at the beginning of the season, we didn't even enter into the conversation for the championship, and Dylan Young, who we thought was going to be a sure thing with the consistency he had after his victory, it comes down literally to a tie between those two, and they will both advance into the playoffs. The 2 drivers that could have wildcarded their way in, but they weren't high enough in points, Levi McIntyre, not enough. That 17th place finish, not enough for him to be able to advance. Tough break for him. He'll finish in the regular season 20th in overall points. He would have been 13 points outside of that tie for the final wildcard spot between Rogers and Dylan Young. And Zachary Fitzwater will finish 25th in the regular season standings. He was way outside of the picture even heading in and was not able to do enough with a 14th place finish today to advance. So McIntyre and Fitzwater, they will fail to make it. Nick Gunther, Kyler Sustre, and Nathan Ormond end up being the drivers with victories. Gunther, of course, with the win here today. They were outside the top 30 in points, so they weren't even in the conversation for a wild card spot. So it looks like 5 former winners on the season will not be advancing into the postseason. But there you go. There's your list. Evans, Hoyt, LaPlante, Qualls, Boland, Turner, Goss, Poteet, Batson, Banks, Breton, Shelton, Rodriguez, Fogler, Butcher, Rogers, and Young. 17 drivers will battle for the championship this season, and it all begins next week at Gateway. Congratulations to Nick Gunther on the victory here today. Congratulations to our 17 playoff drivers that are going to be battling for the championship this season. Cannot wait to see what these playoffs have in store. If you guys enjoyed today's race here from Auto Club, though, and you were able to keep track, hopefully better than I was, please sure to give this video a like, subscribe, become part of the crew. Today we showed you your full feature results. We've already taken you through your point standings. We will see you guys next week. It's another doubleheader. The Lights drivers are back joining the Cup drivers as we will be at Gateway to kick off the playoffs for the Cup drivers and continue on the championship push for the Lights drivers. Until then, I've been Seth Cole. You've been watching another broadcast, courtesy of NNSCRA TV, Offline Racing at its best. The playoffs have begun for the Duracell Next Gen Cup Series.